All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast Interview, where every single week I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and straight up top badasses out there dominating their space. And today, you guys, we got another amazing guest on, actually repeat guest on, that I'm so excited for him to be back with us. This dude's got so much amazing shit, so much amazing knowledge that we all need to know and understand in this changing landscape of technology and just how things are shifting and changing in the way that we do business. So just to give a quick background, you guys, our guest today is the #1 real estate marketing and lead gen trainer in Australia and has been for the last 10 plus years. Now, his focus is on marketing and advertising designed to take an agent from unknown to that rock star celebrity level of fame inside their business, and to be able to do that in 2 years or less. So there's so many in our industry that focus on, like when you get to that table, once you're at giving that listing presentation, that buyer presentation, working with that client, his focus is how do you go out there and build that name, that recognition, and that brand so you can get to more tables and truly grow. And we all know the importance of getting people to know you. It's that brand awareness. That awareness becomes so critical. And this is the best dude in this space at this. So stoked and honored to have back again on the podcast, Glenn Twiddle. Welcome to the podcast, my friend. Welcome back.
Man. Thanks for having me back, bro. And that's what I love about your podcast and doing this sort of thing. Because I remember last time we hung out, I learned a bunch of things from you that I took away and implemented into my world, man. So I'd love hanging out with high energy champions like your good self. So, mate, it's an honor, my man. It's an honor.
Yeah, it means a lot, dude. And we covered a lot of ground in our last podcast, but it's been a few years, dude. And anybody that's watching and listening, we'll have a link below whatever platform that you're at, watching or listening to this on there. You can check out our first podcast. But man, a lot's changed since we talked, dude. COVID's taken place, which changed a lot of the ways that we do business. The market's shifting, the economy's shifting. Plus, there's just more platforms, more online platforms, and more people. I think COVID really, people were already addicted to their devices, but now that just kind of exacerbated, the move, to that. So, I don't really know where the best place to maybe begin is, but walk us through, man. I know, like, what have you been up to since last time we talked, and let's just get this started.
Yeah, well, certainly COVID it was a big eye opener that it went from us being sort of, let's say, we chose to be addicted to our devices, and we're all walking around within arm's length of our devices or whatever. But then when COVID hit and we had to look at our devices, certainly here in Australia, but I was paying particular attention to a lot of my US friends, the US leaders, because it seems like the US often leads the world and countries like ours follow our big brothers in the US's lead. But here in Australia, we were looking at our devices to see if our governments would let us leave our homes. So it went from a choice to almost be addicted to social to almost a government mandated thing that if you weren't addicted to your phone, you didn't know what you were allowed to do or not allowed to do. So that, now I may not like it, and I really don't. As a user, and here's the thing for your viewers, what I would suggest is Facebook is, and in particular, Facebook I want to focus on, because that's the platform that a lot of us our age who own and transact properties, we're still on Facebook, and we're not going to the TikToks of this world, to the, even Instagrams, even though it's owned by Facebook. Yes, we all have got an Instagram account, but I'm telling you, we've done all the testing of every TikTok, Snapchat, every true social, you name it, we've experimented with it. And Facebook is still at least a 2 to 3x multiplier above any of the other platforms when it comes to us as real estate professionals wanting to get our message in front of real estate homeowners. So that's where we are deploying all of those principles that you and I covered off on last time. And I would urge your viewers to, if they like what they're hearing here, to go back and review those principles, because those principles are the ones that get us really, really rock star famous, but not to the whole country like a Josh Altman. I just got back from the Altman's offices where, because we brought Josh Flagg, now that Josh Altman and Josh Flagg are besties, because I've been mates with Altman for 10 years or so. But now that him and Flagg have made up, Well, Josh Flagg would finally take my call. So we brought out the two Joshes to Australia for the first event since COVID. But I just got back from the States in that space. And yeah, there's certainly, with the research I've done, Facebook is the place to play because us oldies are still there. None of the other platforms come close. And those principles we talked about on that first podcast, we now deploy them. 90% of our marketing budget should be deployed online. That gets us famous in a local area. Now, the Altmans and Flagg and all of those guys, they're famous across the entire United States, if not the world. And we don't need your viewers, if they're wanting to be a successful real estate agent, they just need to be famous in a 5-mile radius around around a certain geographic area, and they can be an unknown for the rest of their city, the rest of the country.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, when you look at, for pretty much my entire career, you've seen boomers be about like 29% of the overall transactions, overall, home purchases. But that's greatly increased. I mean, now it's almost 40%, to this current time. I mean, they're the ones with the money, they're the ones, holding on.
Well, and you've got to add X's and even Y's to the boomers.
Well, yeah.
So if you've got boomers, X's and Y's, sort of 35 to 40 plus, that'll probably account for a vast majority of the transactions, certainly down here. And I would hazard a guess over there too.
Yeah. And when you look at Facebook, I mean, it's far surpassed now LinkedIn for being where the affluent are at. So, and especially with all this inflation and all asset classes, it's like, man, real estate is really, for, upper middle class, affluent, and so forth at this point. So I agree, man. It is a and not that I just agree from my own opinion standpoint, from my own testing, and I'm at the point now where, just to what you said, almost to the T, where it's about 90% of my budget is spent on Facebook and about another 10% on Instagram, and then I'm on some other platforms too, but 90% of my ad budget, is on Facebook. And it's because that's where I get 90% plus of my results.
And that's the thing, the beauty of all of these platforms, Facebook, of course, but all of them, is, I love what you just said then. We don't have to have an opinion that anyone has to believe. Run the testing yourself if you doubt on whatever platform, and have a look on the cost per eyeball, because they'll give you all these stats. For every $100 you spend, how many eyeballs does it get? How many video views did that ad spend get? How many leads did that get on a cost per lead basis or whatever? And prove us wrong. And if you guys can show me that the TikTok ads for the purpose of real estate distribution, and that's one of the keys, is you might get the eyeballs, but you've got to make sure that that translates into your marketplace, etc. But the beauty of it is, none of our opinions count anymore because the numbers are all that counts.
Yeah, to your point, man, impressions don't pay the bills. Yeah, right. It's, how many leads, what's your cost per acquisition, what's your overall ROI, on the entire funnel. So then let's just even take a step back. And I know we, covered a lot of this in the last podcast too, but, some may, want to be caught up to speed, and some may not, take the time to go back and watch or listen to that. But let's just start with the why, the importance of, and I assume that most know this, but just in case, what's the importance of going out there and create, whether you want to call it being your local celebrity, but I mean, if you look at the name of the real estate game, it's get people to know you, like you, trust you, be aware of what you do for a living, keep your message in front of them frequently, your business continues to grow, right? So the more people that know you and are like you, trust you, and aware of what you do, your business is going to grow, so why is this so important? Why is it so important now? And can you even speak to, your clients? Because I mean, you work with the best of the best, the who's are the who, in your country as well as here in the States. What is the impact that they see in their business by choosing to go out there and really take this brand building seriously?
Yeah, because the number one out of those three layers that you just mentioned, the know, like, the trust, the vast majority of real estate agents, and I just did this exercise for one of my new clients, taken on a new mastermind group. And oftentimes when I'm charging someone a decent amount of money for me to help them, I start with some impact with them. So what I do personally, I go down to their local area, to like a CVS, like a little local store, a Walmart or a Walgreens or something where the locals go to pick up their bread and milk and stuff, right? and I'll ask 20 people of real estate owning age. If I was to say to you, excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, I'm not selling anything. I'm just doing a quick survey for my next book that I've written. And we covered off on this last time, Josh. I've got a stack of my books there. I show them my book and I give them my book. And I'm just doing a survey and some research for my next book, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. That lets them know that I'm an author, that I'm not there to sell them anything. I'm just there to ask them something. So I ask for an honest answer. And then I say, if I was to say to you the brand name, Josh Smith, what, if anything, does that name mean to you, right? And insert the real estate agent's name there, right? And 0 out of 20 have a clue who I'm talking about in average circumstances. Now, with an agent who, if we're talking about an agent that's, at the end game of what we do with them, like I went down to one of my other students as an example when I first started doing this, who is a beast in his area. I've been working with him for years. He has done everything and he's an animal in his area. And 15 out of 20 said, oh, that's that property guy. Geez, he's on fire. I see him everywhere, So 3/4 of his marketplace, randomly chosen, 35 to 50-year-olds, knew who he was. I dare any of you guys to go down to your local area and deploy that script, and you will get 0 or 1 out of 20 people know that you're even alive. So out of your formula there of know you, like you, trust you, once we've met them and we've got the opportunity to kind of build some rapport and do all of those things, the liking ain't that tough. If you're a half a nice person, and I know your viewers, mate, they're going to be rapport building masters, So the like bit's pretty easy. Once they like you and you can demonstrate some competence at what you do, you're going to get the trust. The far and away hardest part of that 3-part formula that is the key to all the success is the know you in the first place. Because if you just market yourself like the hundreds of other real estate agents that every one of your home sellers could choose from, like every time you get a listing signboard up there, there would be easily 100 other real estate agents that would go, gosh darn, I wish I got that. So if you market yourself and position yourself and try to get known the same way all those other guys do, you got maybe a 1 in 100 chance of being the one that gets even known, so you got to flip those odds and you got to get known by everyone. And that ain't going to happen if you look, smell, and feel exactly like the rest of them. So that's the importance of all this stuff. Is the first thing is, given that they don't particularly want to hear from a real estate agent, like think about it, we're one of the least trusted and liked professions on the planet. And it's not our fault. We're still the same nice people we were before we got into the industry. So we're not liked as a factor of what we do for a living. They instantly dislike us, sometimes even to the point of they hate us. So we've got to get over that just to get back to neutral. So if we smell like the rest of them, we're screwed. So we have to be seen more and be seen differently than every other real estate agent that we're up against. Otherwise, the odds of us being successful, that's why we see the fallout rate across the world. It's the same here as it is there, that most don't make 2 years. They go back to whatever they were doing because they just can't compete in that get known competition.
Yeah. And what I love about the era that we are in is, it used to be these big billion-dollar companies, Coca-Cola, whatever, that could go out, like that could afford to go out there and get known on that level. I remember, I don't know, 15 years ago even, man, I was having to spend about $60,000 a month between radio, TV, like just to get that awareness. Now today, because of social media and just technology, it's so much easier and less expensive than ever before. So maybe if somebody's like, well, dude, I can't do that. I'm not making Josh Altman money.
Don't need to be.
Yeah. Let's kind of, because all the limiting beliefs as to why people want to do stuff, right? So let's kind of maybe peel back the onion on that, just to show that, hey, like you don't need to be
doable.
Yeah,
it's doable, man. I love it what you just said there, man. Because when we first got in the game 25 years ago, for me, it was full pay. If you wanted a good ad for a listing in a newspaper, It was $20,000 here in Australia for the major real estate Bible here in Australia. A little 1/24th of a page, which was the entry level pictorial ad, that was still $1,000 per week. So if you wanted to run a 3-week campaign, it was $3,000 to $5,000 for all that just to get in the game, you know. And so so certainly there has never been in your and my adult lifetime the ability to buy a 1-cent eyeball of a consumer with no wastage. That's the other beautiful thing about these new platforms and their targeting. If we paid that $20,000 for that big full page in the local newspaper, the fact that that went all over our capital city of Brisbane to 1 million readership. Now, it's nothing like LA that's, 30 million. In LA, there's as many people in LA as in my country, but still, if there's 1 million people who read this advertising media that we had to pay $1,000 to $20,000 to get into, 95% of that expenditure was a complete waste of time because there's no targeting, because it's so broad for the whole city. Whereas with Facebook, you can put a pin where your office is, or where you choose to be the center of your geographic universe, put a 2-mile radius or a 3-mile radius around, and your ads will only appear to the people that geographically you choose, or the people and the people of the correct age. So you tell Facebook, hey, don't waste any of my, heaven forbid, 1-cent impressions on those 18-year-olds that aren't going to buy anything for 20 years or aren't going to sell anything for 10 years or whatever the case may be. You just go to the 35 to 55-year-olds or whatever the age bracket is where most of your transacting takes place. You tell Facebook, that's the age demographic I want. That's the geography that I want. Deploy my ads en masse there. I'll give you 1 cent every time someone sees my brand and watches my video, looks at my graphic, whatever the case may be. We've never seen an advertising media so cheap ever. And I don't think we ever will again. And so what I would say is I love this podcast is the GSD. That's get it done. And so I'm trying not to curse so that if you put it on YouTube, you don't get demonetized, bro. But first thing you guys need to get done is go to Facebook and create 2 audiences. Right now, if you don't know how to do this, Josh and I can't sit here and go, click here, click here, click here. You've got to go to YouTube, or if Josh has got a program on how to do social media and stuff, buy it from him. Get the ability to create an audience. And it's a very simple audience, and you want 2 of them. One is, how far geographically are your buyers by and large? Now, I know you might get a few interstate buyers that are going to come and hit you up and, or whatever, but where do 70 to 80% of your buyers come from geographically? So if that's a 10-mile radius, then that's your buyer audience radius. So that buyer audience is, where is the age demographic of the majority of your buyers? Now, I know you're going to get the odd 22-year-old TikTok celebrity with millions of dollars who's going to come along and buy properties from you or sell properties through you. We're not talking about the outliers. We're only talking about where most of your transacting happens age-wise for buyers, where most of your transacting happens geography-wise for buyers, and then go hard. That's the first audience. And the second audience will probably be a little more geographically tight, might only be a 2-mile radius, while the buyer audience might be 10 or 15 or whatever. And that's your sellers audience, right? So it's, where are the majority of the age bracket of your sellers, and how far geographically do you want to focus? So make those 2 audiences, and then all the things that Josh and we might brainstorm some ideas of what you can send to that audience goes to whichever one. So for example, your listings should be deployed to your buyer's audience, because Josh and I talked about it last time. I know it's not the way things are necessarily done, normally and customarily over there. But my question that I would ask of any US realtor is, why can't it be marketing to buyers so that the buyers come to you direct, as opposed to going through your MLSs and your other real estate agents? Why can't you attract those people who are looking for homes directly And whether you double end them or whether they've got something to sell that they have to sell first or whatever the case may be, sure, you'll work with other real estate agents when you have to, but don't spend your marketing dollars just focused on working with other real estate. Spend your marketing dollars getting their buyers that would normally go to them, or get them to come to you. And then if they don't want to buy your property that you're selling, maybe you could buy as agents, sign them up and sell them something yourself. There is no argument against attracting a member of the public for you to service them, whether it's on the buyers or the sellers side. Bring them into your world, seduce them, get them into your web of rapport building, intrigue, and then help them get done whatever they want to get done, whether that's buying, selling, or whatever. So create the two audiences, and then let's chuck your stuff at them. But certainly the first place to go is get your listings up there and get them well advertised and deployed to those two audiences. But certainly if your seller's audience is that and your buyer's audience is that, by deploying to your buyer's audience and your seller's audience, you're going to get a lot of distribution of that listing to your seller's audience, which you want because you want them to see the name. But also you're going to get distribution to that buyer's audience as well, and spend as much as you can afford to spend.
Yeah. And then, every area is different with Facebook regulations, but like here in the States, and it's been a little while, but more in the more recent, time frame, because Facebook got sued by HUD. And like we used to be able to segment, okay, I could segment age range, I could segment, gender, and a lot of that's now went away for us that are in, because now we have to, we have to select this. Now this only applies if you are actually going out there and so it's B2C. So me advertising as a realtor to the consumer, and like if I'm doing, I don't know, homes for sale style of an ad, so it's like now they make it for targeting. You have to do you can't do smaller than a 15-mile radius. But if you look at that, it's like, okay, you can still take your city 15-mile radius or your office 15-mile radius. But then from there, now, and this was I was gonna ask if you were aware of that, because a potential workaround could be, if you created a separate ads manager and a separate business page, but made that as like a public figure page where that was about brand building, and then you shared the pixels because you could share them the audiences, and then you can retarget those with a custom audience. So there's always workarounds, and it's like if I'm doing agent recruiting or GSD mode stuff, I have full capabilities of all the audiences. It's only for those in real estate or financial,
Is that little button, Josh? Tell me, because there's a button on ours that we aren't obligated to push that says, is this and I think it's political or wealth building or property. That's that button. So when you click yes to that button, it removes all targeting capabilities, does it?
Yeah. So I can't segment men, women. It's got to be 18 plus. You can't segment age.
And does that 15-mile, because that 15-mile radius or whatever it is, that's still here. But if you click drop the pin, it removes that limitation and lets you bring it in. Does that workaround still work?
To be honest with you, I haven't tested it. So,
let's just say try that one.
Yeah.
Because you know your stuff. So I would say you try it with one of your clients and then maybe do an update or something to let us know. So, because that limitation used to be there. And then when I'd show clients, hey, all you do is you click drop pin and you put it on the map, put the radius in, and then you could bring the radius into a much smaller one. But to your point, I would even say if you're selling B2C, business to consumer, and this is where, a couple of blokes like us, we can put our brains together and see what could we offer to that audience, that if it's not a house that we're going to offer to that audience, what can it be? So it might be an ultimate buy, like do not buy a property before you read this buyer's checklist that you absolutely must get before buying any property in the greater San Juan area or whatever the area might be. So that way you're kind of casting a net to get all people wanting to transact in properties. And then you could subsequently, because what you're always trying to do is get contact details so you can get them off Facebook and into your database. emails, mobile phone numbers, etc., so that then you can email them and text them the various offers that you might want to be making them. Once you've incentivized them for their contact details by saying, here, I've got this thing that you should want.
Yeah, I love it, man. So then, you talked about 1 cent video views, 1 cent, and I can attest this. Because I'm running one right now, and I have it optimized for through play, which means, it's a 15, so I'm getting charged per 15-second video view, and I'm averaging right now 1 cent through plays, which is mind blowing to me.
That is
right?
unbelievable.
And it's actually for the GSD Mode podcast, right? So it's just to go out there and advertise and get known more for branding, and so forth. But for real estate agents, outside of just, okay, I'm going to run, this listing for sale, when it comes to, other just strategies for getting brand recognition out there, because you got, in any given population, depending, it might be 3 to 5% of that given population that is of age of transacting real estate that may do so in the next 12 to 18 months, right? But then you got like this whole other 95+% of the population that is going to transact probably at some point in the future, but not right now. So they may not be interested in clicking on a home for sale, or, but what are other content that you're putting out there when you're speaking specifically to like those 1 cent video views that are really building up that brand awareness?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through one specific strategy now, because I'm actually on a call with one of the #1 real estate officers in Australia after we're done here. And this is going to be the topic I'm going through with them. So I've got a few visuals for them that I can share with your guys. And this is, one of my favorite strategies. So what I asked my team to do, and I'll send you the link after this, I asked my team to put together a box set of everything that I've ever done. So, because the answer to your question is there's 4 types of ads that we want to deploy to our various platforms. One of which is category 1 is what we sort of just discussed. It's ads that let your area know that you're alive. And listings are the best way, that when they see Josh Smith and this home for sale, Josh Smith and that home for sale, listings are a great way just to get known that you exist. But category 2 is my favorite, and that's posts that prove you're awesome, right? That just prove that thing that now they know that you're in real estate, an agent, things that prove that you're good at it, that you're liked by other people, that you're successful, that you are trustworthy. And so my favorite of that is video testimonials, right? And letting other people, through the power of their story and through the, let's say, authenticity of them not being a salesperson, them just being a little old lady telling their story of how you helped them, deploying those things en masse. So we'll go through now for the next little while how we deploy those, what we do, and I'll even show you some numbers of what one of my agents who went from nowhere when last we spoke. I remember when we spoke, and it was years ago, during that time, she's gone from doing average numbers, which is barely, not quite 6 figures in her pocket, so sort of the $80,000 a year mark, $70,000 a year mark, to over $1 million a year. So she's like 15x'd her business in the time since I've known you. And this was one of the primary strategies that she used. But I did ask my team to take, and look, if there's no Aussies are going to watch this, so I won't get in trouble. I put every program I've ever put together, ever, like, and that's everything with Schwarzenegger, every event that I've ever done, every 2, 3, or 4 day event that I've ever done, I got it put into a box set and thrown up on a website. And my team dropped it down from the amount that we charge. Even my best clients, I charge $1,000 for this, and they dropped it down to $47 Australian. So that's going to be like $30 US or something, right? It's insane. So I said to Naomi, do that. So I'll get you that website, and that you can make that available to your people. That'll give an in-depth explanation of everything that answers your question, which is every ad strategy, etc., that you should put to that audience to facilitate that outcome. But let's go through my favorite now, so that, if they don't want to, if they can't stand this stupid Aussie accent or whatever, then just do this one, because it's going to get you a lot of the result that that all of them would. So let me share with you what what that is. So that's the first one that we want to do out of those 4 categories, right? Is listings, right? So we've had a quick chat about that. The second one is proof, right? That's category 2 is proof, right? So what we want to do is have graphical proof. So that's testimonials. And if you get a video testimonial, like understand that all of my testimonials that we don't get these as written. It's just the transcription of what they said on the video. Or we get a photo or a selfie with those sellers, right? So we get graphical evidence that we've helped these people. But the main one that I like are these video ones, right? So this video has got a little bit of Joanne, but then it just goes to the little old couple just telling their story. And this is a Facebook ad. This has been deployed. This one here, same thing, little intro from Joe at the start for branding purposes. Photo of Joe in the thing up here for branding purposes. That way, for those viewers, you talked about before that you're getting 1 cent through plays. Well, that means you're probably paying about 0.2 of a cent for someone to not look at it, just to scroll through it and not really watch it. So for 0.2 of a cent, even less, I would say, they're still seeing sold your name and your face, right? So all of those goodies that come from them just seeing that, you get for free, basically. It's crazy talk. So we want to get a whole bunch of those. And then once we've got those, and these are just some scripts that are so if you guys want to quickly screen grab those, that's a script that we might say to the people that would get them to say some nice things. So screen grab that, learn that, and say it to your sellers. Learn that, say it to your sellers. And then, if you need to rephrase it, screen grab that, learn that, and say it to your sellers. So if they ramble and don't quite give you the script you're wanting, you'll just say, look, I just love a short grab, just so I could sort of show my business coach the short version. So would it be fair to say that having met me, you had X, Y, and Z expectations of what you would get out of a real estate agent, but that what you got from us was everything that you wanted, plus an extra $15,000 that you didn't even know was in the taking, and you got it. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. So how would you say that? How would you word that? Now, notice I'm saying I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've just put words in their mouth, know? So get those video testimonials. And then what we do with them is this. So this is, where is my next session? Is it here? Oh, there it is, there it is. All right, so this here is, now Josh, I don't know what you are and aren't allowed to show. So if you want to blur any of this out when you take it to your edit, feel free, but no need on my behalf. So this is what we call our evergreen video testimonial bucket. And in the evergreen video testimonial bucket are all of those video testimonials from sellers saying just amazing things, right? So they're just saying just great stuff, right? So you're just gonna have to go with me. Like they're real, they're human, they're authentic, they're result-based where possible. Like if we can get them to say the financial outcome that they achieved, or if we can get them to say what the financial outcome meant to them. One of them, this little old lady says, my husband's been playing guitar for his whole life, and with the extra we got from that, and then old mate husband, the old bloke, brings out a Gibson Les Paul that was the guitar of his dreams that he could never afford until a real estate agent did a great job for him. Can you imagine the emotion that couple were showing? That's priceless, So if you can imagine that we do our best to not just get someone saying, Josh Smith is number one, go with him. We're wanting the real humanity out of what that successful outcome meant to that person. Like imagine if someone was thinking they're going to have to hand the keys back and lose their home, and an agent comes along with the right strategy and saves their home. We have had people in these testimonials, in fact, from Joanne Riley, who is the person we're talking about now, with a tear in her eye, wiping tears out of her eyes, apologizing, saying, being a bit silly, aren't I? Tears of gratitude about what a real estate agent did for her. Amazing. So given that that's the content of these testimonials, these are the numbers. Now, is this a year? Yeah, this is 1st of March last year to 28th of Feb this year. So this is 1 year worth of stats that we're looking at here, right? So if you have a look, this agent spent $2,500. Now understand that got her in front of 350,000 impressions and 200,000 2-second plays. Through plays, now what you're getting is through plays for 1 cent. That's just amazing, because as you can see, Joe is paying 7 cents per through play, right? But the one I want to really draw your attention to, because all of these 2-second, 3-second, and even through plays, you only get 15 seconds then. So even a through play are good, but they're just good as a bonus, right? They're just good as a bonus. This is the number I want you to have a look at. Video plays at 75% or 95%, because that's them watching 2 or 3 minutes, right? 2 or 3 minutes of gratitude being expressed by a seller. Now, at 75% or 95%, really what that means is if they've watched 3 minutes of a real estate agent saying, hey, it's Joe here. Thanks for watching. I just couldn't even express in my own words how it felt to serve Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so I'll let them tell the story. Here they are, right? So Joe does a quick 10-second video. Then they're watching 3 to 4 minutes, 75 to 95% of that, of the seller's story about what selling a house through Joe meant to them. So in 3 minutes of that, they're going to get a good idea that Joe is the shit. You know what I mean? And so think about this. For $2,000, she got, was it on the thing there? It was 9,000 plays at 50%. 7,000 plays at 75% and 3,000 plays at 95%. So let's just focus on the 3,000 plays at 95%. That's 70 cents for 3,000 people in her area to watch a variety of people, some with tears in their eyes, but all expressing overwhelming gratitude that Joanne Riley is the exception to the rule, that she's awesome. My question is that the best $2,000 advertising spend in the history of advertising when it comes to influencing? Because the question you've got to ask yourself, and that I hope your viewers are asking yourself, out of those 300,000 impressions and 180,000 reach, that means 300,000 it was deployed, 180,000 times or whatever it is, people. My question is, which 3,000 in that year watched 95% of it? Like, who could be bothered sitting through that? That's the question to ask. And what would be your common sense answer to that? Who'd bother to sit through that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it would be, yeah. I mean, but those that are listening to this that aren't seeing the visuals, you know, Glenn was actually logging into this client's ads manager and showing these different ad sets and showing the actual live results. So, you know, unlike most that just talk a bunch of shit, he's actually, you know, coming on here showing, you know, true proof and results. But yeah, I mean, by you know, you have to get out my calculator. I'm bad at mental math in my head, but whatever that calculates to, 1% of impressions that actually, yeah, you know, watch that 95%. Yeah. But those are people that, you know, are shopping, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be someone who gives a stuff about maybe thinking about something to do with real estate. So you're letting the cheapest advertising media of the modern era do the heavy lifting for you. They self-sort. So some people might say, oh, a 4-minute video is too long. No, it's not. Not for those 3,000 people, it's not. And you let them, if say 30 seconds is the ideal for 75% of the people, well, cool, let them go at the 30-second mark so that there is a good solid 3 minutes to influence the people who will watch 3 minutes. Like, think about your podcast, Josh. You don't wrap it up after 4 minutes because most video views only go for 2 minutes, because that agent who is ready to make a change in their career is going to sit there and watch an hour of you with your variety of beast guests that you get. You know, and again, some of those beast guests I love and are mentors and teachers of mine. So I love it. Don't cut me off after 4 minutes with Brian Casella dropping gold. Give me an hour and a half with him, even if everyone else drops off at 4 minutes. So same principle, that you cannot compete with the numbers there. And here's the beauty of it. You're right, Josh. If they're listening to this, they couldn't have seen those visuals. I'm glad you were there to attest to that I'm showing you those numbers. But the beauty of it is the next step is, what did those visuals end up resulting in? Well, with the implementation of listing deployment to their area en masse, in whatever way is legal in your area or whatever workaround you can find to get the fact that, because remember, the only reason we deploy listings is so the consumers know we're a real estate agent and we are selling properties. So if that's the outcome we're trying to achieve, and here in Australia, we do that via listing deployment, you've got to either A, find a way to deploy listings without triggering the problem, B, be okay with a 15-mile radius and that slight lack of targeting ability, knowing there's a little bit of wastage, but hey, it's not the end of the world if everyone just knows you're a beast. At 1 cent a view, like think about this. Agents used to deploy flyers en masse, piece of paper and ink, right? Well, that's 20 cents if you include printing and delivery and all of that. So we could afford a 90% wastage and just be the same as we were when it was paper and ink in letterboxes or on however we used to deploy direct mail or whatever the case may be. So deploying those listings or whatever, deploying that strategy, and that's been the #1 strategy that Jo has deployed that I've seen her spend in total since she's been working with me. Her bill for that evergreen video testimonial bucket that we call it has been $10,000, and it's been 1 million views of her testimonials in and around her area. And now she's at, that's $1 million she's put, $10,000 she put in, along with a lot of hard work and execution, along with some budgetary things for the other 3 categories. But still, her advertising spend per year on Facebook is well less than 50 grand. And her revenue for the last couple of years has been over $1 million every single year. Yeah. So you tell me what ATM you can put 50 grand in and extract $1 million, even with a couple of $100 grand in expenses and wages and things, because she's got 1 PA, an office that she pays 50 grand a year for. So even if her expenses come to 250 grand, 750 grand for a single woman ain't too bloody bad, happy days. And she just deployed the system. So not only did you see proof in the terms of there's the ads manager showing how it rolls, but there's an agent that come from nowhere to $1 million a year, and proof's in the pudding. I love it. And she's just one of many, but she's the one that I'm using as an example, because my next client that I'm on today after we're going to talk, he asked for a breakdown of how Joanne Riley did it, because even though he's really successful, one of the most successful agents in the country, his weak and principal licensees, business owners, brokers that you guys would call it. So he still lists and sells, and he's got one of the most successful in the country. He's still looking at a lady who 3 years ago was a total rookie. He's looking at her for inspiration, and he wants a breakdown case study of what I did with Jo deployed to his team. So you got to love how we can learn from the unlikeliest of sources. So look her up, guys. Have a look at her Facebook page. Go to Joanne Riley Property here on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and just have a look through her timeline and look at what she's doing. Look at the various types of graphics she's deploying, not only in the testimonial space, which is great, but have a look at I remember last time, Josh, we talked about not just getting a photo shoot with your, that's a typical real estate agent headshot with your arms cropped off and all of that. And a few of your guys even contacted me for my photo shoot module, and I gifted that to them. And so, you'll see on Joanne Riley's timeline how she deploys those graphic shots that are all different, how she deploys the things we've talked about today, listings and proof, how she deploys all of that. And scroll down the timeline, spend a half an hour going through her history, and you'll see years ago, nothing happening. And you'll slowly see it build and build and build to the point where right now she is one of the leading agents in the country. And again, as a single operator, with 1 staff member, 1 million. I really want your guys to imagine in cash, if the boss came along and handed you a wad of hundreds, $20,000 a week. What sort of effort would you put in if the boss was paying you a wad of hundreds, 20 grand worth every single week? Would you whinge about getting up early to work? I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. So I got a few follow-up questions here. So, when you were inside her ads manager, it looked like that I could see that she had 9 different testimonials from 9 different clients running. Sorry. Okay. So what I was saying is, okay, it looked like when you were inside her ads manager, there's 9 different testimonial ad sets inside that campaign. So 9 different testimonials.
In the ad set. So let me get that really clear. There was one, and now none of these specifics are the magic, right? But just for clarity, it was one campaign, one ad set. Now, ad set is where you have your audience and your targeting. And then within that ad set, there were 9 separate ads. But there's no magic in any one of those variables. That's just the way we set it up. And what I like to do is have 9 going for this month, but turn them off and have another 6 going the next month, and just turn those off, because then we have another 4 going the next month. But then after 3 months, we might turn 4 on from the first 9 and we rotate them, because those human interest stories, it doesn't matter how old they are.
Yeah,
we just rotate the things. So yeah, we have a bucket full of them. Now, for your guys saying, but I haven't got 30 different video testimonials. Well, start. Get 2 and have your evergreen bucket. And the reason we call it an evergreen bucket, that just sits there drip feeding her marketplace at $200 or $300 per month, every single month, just sitting there like a silent salesperson, shoving proof into her marketplace morning, noon, and night. Whenever her marketplace are addicted to their phones, every couple of hours, they're seeing a Joanne Riley success story deployed at them, among the other things they're seeing. But it's literally like Joanne Riley is on the front page of the LA Times every single day to those consumers. Only it's costing her a fraction of what it would cost for en masse marketing deployment in any other media. But those are the specifics of how we've got it. But don't let the fact that she's got 9 ads on and another 10 ads turned off, waiting to join the rotation. If you've got 1, start with 1. If you've got 4, start with 4. And if you've got none, you need to go and get some. Just set up a tripod, set up your phone, point it at a seller, push record on a tripod, and then say to them, now forget that and just tell me. And then ask some questions, open-ended, that lead to some good, and just keep talking to them until they say something magical, and then let your video editor pull out the gold.
Yep. So then, with those, because okay, you're running, you're just listed, just sold, then you got, testimonials. Are those, is there any type of a funnel with that, or are you just targeting all of those, shotgunning those to the same audience? So they're just seeing all times a mixture of all of those things.
Yeah, for 90% of your audience, if your audience are anything like mine, and here's the thing, mate, they might be, because you've been running your podcast for a long time, you've been educating real estate agents, so you'll have some of your students that are at the next level, and my answer to them would be different than my answer to the general real estate population. So what I would say is, the first thing I would say is to your advanced students, sure. Imagine those ones who've watched 95% of the video or 75% of the video, they should get a retargeting ad targeted at a new audience of video viewers of any of those videos at the 95% or more mark, or 75% or more mark. That could be another video or a graphic that said, hey, thanks for watching that story. It really did mean the world to me that we were able to help Mary and Joe like that. But if you'd like, if you were watching that with a view to maybe making some moves yourself, I'll be honored to give you a bit of my time. I'll waive any fees associated with it, and I'll just sort of give you some advice. I love giving back to our community the way it's given me a career. I'd be honored. So if you want some assistance, some advice, or even, and this is going on, throwback to our last podcast, or even a copy of my book, How to Sell for Top Dollar in Any Market. Because remember last time, Josh and I talked about the power of being a published author. So when you follow up on your video ad to the people who've watched 3/4 of a video or not, a very gentle lead generation ad that just says, and hey, I'll be honored if you'd graciously accept a copy of my book, How to Sell for Top Dollar in Any Market. It's got some amazing tips of what you can do with your home right now, 6 months ahead of even selling, to get started, to add those sorts of outcomes that you just watched one of our success stories, or maybe you've seen more. There's a formula that we use to get those incredible, what seems to many of those folks out there as magical outcomes. It's not magic. It's a science that I talk about in this book here. So I'd be honored to gift you a copy of the book. Just throw your details in and I'll make sure I have it couriered around to you straight away. So I'm just spitballing off the top of my head there. The advanced student, yes, throw some retargeting lead generation stuff to the people who have self-selected. That is absolutely the best advice. But please, you guys are watching the GSD podcast. You guys are here to get something done. So do not let that complexity of, oh, what's the pixel? How do you measure how do you create a video views order? Don't let any of that stop you from doing step one. Create your audience geographically, or 2 audiences if you can. Start getting a video testimonial and get it nicely edited. And when you look at Joanne Riley's page, or if you look at PRD Hunter Valley, that's PRD Hunter Valley, that's another one of my students, or, or message me and I'll send you a little list of all the pages you should have a look at. You'll look at these things nicely edited. Well, any video editor on your various outsourcing sites could put something together very affordably to put something nice together. Just get your audiences done and start shoving them out to those audiences, and don't worry about the complexities of the next step, because, the first thing, remembering we're at 1 cent a view. Here's I can't stress this enough. We never used to bother with any of the complexity, and we certainly didn't let it stop us when it was flyers or mailers or whatever it was that used to cost us 20 and 30 and $1 to deploy and send in the mail. We never used to let what happens next stop us from doing step one, when that was our initial outbound marketing strategy. When we were putting things in the newspaper, we never let it go, oh, how do we figure out through the newspaper eyeball detection software which people stay on the page? And we never used to worry about that. We used to just pay the money in exchange for distribution. So apply the same level of carefree expenditure to just get your foot in the game, but then do whatever education you've got to do with Josh, with any of the people Josh endorses, and I'm sure he's got a million resources to go to. Or if you wanted to sort of take Josh up on the $10,000 down to $30 US or whatever it is for the thing I've got, there's a bunch of Facebook how-to resources in there. Like, grab that stuff and learn how to do maybe some of the more complex things in a step-by-step kind of fashion, but do not let that complexity and that learning curve stop you from taking step one. And we've described step one here today. And if step one is even too hard, what's an ads manager? You have to do some research and get educated, because you can't afford to be left out of. If you're left out of 1 cent eyeballs in the advertising game, if all things are equal, or even if you're substantially better at the know and like, at the like and trust stage, if you're at an economic disadvantage because all of your eyeballs cost you 20 cents and you're not willing to go through the learning curve to get, like Josh was saying, 1 cent through plays, I need to do Josh's course to figure out how to get 1 cent through plays. Because as you see, I'm getting 7 cent through plays and I'm still dancing in the streets over it. Dancing in the streets. I would happily pay $10 for a real estate agent to watch 4 minutes of my testimonials, my students just bang on about the results they got through me. Happily pay $10 for that. I'm currently being asked to pay $1. Don't let the economic disadvantage of your lack of knowledge of how to even do step one, distribution en masse, don't miss out on the 1 cent eyeballs while they're there. I implore you. I'm begging you for your sake. Get the 1 cent eyeballs. And if you haven't yet got the technological capability to set up an ads manager, set up a pixel, and you don't even need a pixel for initial distribution, because pixel is for tracking off Facebook stuff. Video views and all that can be done without a pixel. It can be done just on Facebook. So do learn whatever it needs to just get to step 1 or 2. Then come back to Josh and say, hey, Josh, I did that thing that crazy Aussie said. Pretty good. What's next? What's that thing you were talking about? Retargeting 75%? Tell me more, Josh. And then Josh will have some resources for you to take that next step, but start with the first couple of steps.
Yeah. And then, another question I had for you is, it seemed like with the example that you gave with Joanne, looking at just her overall graphics, there was differentiation, but then there was also similarities where, based on her brand colors, her logo, imagery, like each one, the style, I could tell it was hers. how important is that? And not just even with Facebook, but really just overall online kind of, just that overall presence of that congruency, because I mean, we're talking about it takes when the average person being sold 5,000 times commercially on a daily basis, it takes a lot of those impressions, for people of seeing that brand. I mean, how can you kind of speak to the importance of, making sure that, and maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm asking the question is how important is that?
Yeah. So now the magic isn't in hot pink, even though when people Google me, they'll see hot pink everywhere. And a lot of my students like and realize that my brand cuts through because it's all hot pinks and blacks and it just stands out. Now, I only got my idea for hot pink and black because of Bret the Hitman Hart, the wrestler. I used to love his visuals, right? I used to love them. So you're right. Joanne does have a hot pink and black kind of brand, but whatever your brand consistency is, the fact is, here's the principle that you alluded to, that again, you're asking the question rhetorically because you already know the answer. Like a good lawyer, Josh, you only ask questions that you know the answer to. So you're 100% right, mate. Joe is very consistent in that when even the scroller, and I'm just going through for the people watching the video version of your podcast, showing a little bit of Joanne's timeline, but for your audio people, they're different enough that there's a different Joe in most of the photos, but the brand graphic always has that kind of corporate color scheme. Even though the layout is different, the content is different, the Joe is different. So it's never the same headshot that you see the same agent use the same headshot time and time again. It's always a different Joe. It's a different pose. It's sometimes fun, sometimes professional. We're right now looking, we just had St. Paddy's Day. So we throw up a St. Paddy's Day post with her with a silly St. Paddy's Day hat on. Sometimes it's just a photo of Joe, but then there's her billboard in the background. So yeah, you're 100% right, mate. There's always differences so that when the consumer sees the variety of posts coming up on a day-to-day basis, they know it's not just the same thing over and over and over again. So they know that Joe is active and making it happen. Just the sheer fact that it's all different says to the casual consumer just scrolling through, I see that pink chick everywhere. Now that's a beautiful thing because over years, they get to know, that pink chick, they get to know her name's Joanne. And over the next 6 months or 8 months, they get to know it's Joanne Riley. Then over the next 2 or 3 years, they get to know that Joanne Riley sells everything in real estate. It happens gradually. And so there's consistency in brand and color, and it's always the same pretty face, or it's always the same you. For me, it's always the same bald head, goatee, or whatever. But it's a different Glenn. Sometimes he's pointing up. Sometimes he's going, sometimes. I tell you, let me show you this one, Josh. This is a little promotion I'm doing at the moment. And this is the one thing I'll ask of your people is throw this page, and it's Glenn Twiddle 2, into Facebook and have a look. It's a new page that I've done because my old page, Josh, and here's the admission, my old page got errors done on my ads because I've got 10 years of ads on there. And my old page now, just recently, I cannot get my advertising privileges back, no matter what, no matter how many millions of dollars I've spent on Facebook, and it's gone. So I'm starting a new page. I have to. And so you'll see if you scroll through my new page, you'll see these principles in action. But on my old page, what I'm doing is I'm doing a countdown to get rid of the old page. And so I've got all these, it's still me, it's still the bald head, it's still the goatee, but my teenage son has drawn silly bloody cartoons of me. And even that is a perfectly adequate execution of attention-getting brand recognition. So the old page is the one without the 2 on the end, it's just Glenn Twiddle. And you'll see that, now if you go back on it for years, you will see the same principles at play. But recently, for the last week, you'll just see this silliness. Now, can you imagine how much attention that is getting? It's standing out like crazy because it's something they've never seen from me. It still contains those elements that says, that's Glenn. Bald head, goatee, pink. So yeah. Long way to answer your question, but you're 100% on the money. It's got to be consistent enough that at a glance, they know it's you, but it's got to be different enough that at a glance, they know it's something new.
Yep. Yeah. So, running just listed, just sold, you're running testimonials, social proof. And then I got to imagine there's got to be a lot of different, you know, uh, showing your expertise in the market, knowledge, expertise, of the local market. So, I mean,
mainly through proof, brother, mainly through proof, because for the 98.10% or whatever it is, most people in your audience of 40,000, say you've got an audience of 40,000, that's your primary audience you're marketing to. There might only be 100 that are doing anything that really care about expertise in listing and selling of homes. So most of our expertise deployment, at least half of it, if not 3/4 or more, is just done through those successful outcomes and human interest stories, because they might be of interest to someone even if they're not in real estate. And they might watch 30 or 40 seconds of it, but they're not going to watch, a 2-minute video on how to clean your gutters out in order to then. Don't try and deploy your expertise at this early stage, other than general, like giving away a copy of your best-selling book, or a photo of you if you happen to get on, $1 million listing, or if you've got a selfie with Josh Altman, or you run across, with some of the things we talked about last time. Your expertise, deploy it in ways that are interesting. And in our last hour-long talk, we went through a bunch of those ways. But yeah, I wouldn't go too early on trying to be the expert in the real estate space with specificity, because most people don't care about the specificity at this stage and will turn off if you go with too much depth on that specificity.
Yeah. Now, is like a Joanne as an example, just using her because I know she's following the framework that you have all your clients do, with like her gist listeds and so forth. I'm assuming that those are both accomplishing getting the brand out there and helping with that, but also at the same time leading to like a lead form to generate leads.
Correct. And a lot of times, yes, we attach a lead form, but a lot of times we're just after a timeline. Like, have a look at, and again, I know for your audio viewers, we'll have to describe it, but this is a timeline, and this is where I was doing some research of the Beverly Hills guide. Like, have a look. This is a typical real estate agent's listing. So you must be able to market listings, because here is Rodeo Real Estate marketing listings. No likes, no comments, no shares, no likes. Now, this is one of the Josh used to work for Rodeo Real Estate. Nothing is going on. This is not a slight on Rodeo Realty, right? But as you can see, there is no engagement on anything. This company had television exposure for years when Josh Flagg worked there, and there is nothing going on any of these properties. You go to, there's one of my students, this is who I've got in 10 minutes time. This is one of my students. Let's have a look. Let's go down and see some of their listings. That's a sold. A video, it's open home reminders. Okay, so here's a listing. It's been up for 5 days, and I'm flying without a net here. Okay, so this one, as you can see, this one has an ad spent on it yet. 1 comment, so that's nothing. Let's see if this one's had an ad. This one has had an ad spent on it, 70 comments, 80 likes, 74 likes, 4 shares, and this is real humans, right? This is real people with real comments. So this is what we're looking for. We want the public to see our competitors looking like this with nothing going on. And when they come and see us, and if they don't see it organically, believe me, we show them at the listing presentation that when we take a property to market, action happens, right? So I'm just going down to the listings, and we show consistency that when we put a property to the market, everyone looks at it. When our competitors take a property to the market, nothing happens. And yet those competitors think they're doing their social media well, because the photos look great, the videos look great. Here's what most real estate agents are doing when it comes to deployment of most of their advertising. Even if they're getting good quality graphic design, video editing, listing deployment, whatever it might be, they've got great collateral. It's like they've got a billboard, and then they stick that billboard in the middle of the forest where no one sees it. They don't have a problem with the content creative. They've got a problem with the distribution because they don't do any. And so that's what I would say is put it out there and make sure it gets distributed, because we need to get it seen. It's equally as important. You know what? I'd rather adequate creative and massive deployment than great creative and no deployment. Why? Because it's like printing your gorgeous flyers and they're under your desk in the office holding the door open. you know?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, looking at, again, speaking of Joanne, because that was the case study that you showed. We break it down. I mean, that's the average person's Starbucks budget monthly, to go out there and,
That's
have
right.
that type of engagement. And the other element that I really like is, if you really look at the stuff that she's putting out there, it's like, okay, yeah, she's got professional, photography of her on the still images. But then everything else is really showcasing her clients. So for those that are like, well, I don't really want to be on video. Okay, well, you're not. You don't necessarily have to be. It's like you've got, your headshots, if you will, and the still images. Your clients are the ones in the client testimonial videos. So for those that just refuse to be on video with something like this, they can grow a massive brand without personally really having to be on video.
Yeah, they don't have to be, but it's helpful to be. So what I would say is, because I've got some introverts that I had to beg to get on camera, and eventually I wear them down. Eventually they do, and eventually they get numb to it. If not, I've had a few that got to like it. Now, even if you don't like it, I go back to that question. If your boss was going to give you 20,000 a week, like, think about how big that is. Maybe get $5,000 in hundreds and fan it out and say, would you get through that little bit of discomfort if that was your weekly paycheck? And if the answer is yes, because imagine if that was a wage that the boss was going to pay, a wage. How do you think the boss would feel if you went, oh, I don't really want to, talk to a little piece of glass there. I don't want to do it. Well, believe me, that 20 grand is going to go to someone who will. Yep. So the 20 grand is going to come. Now, is it possible to do it without getting in front of a camera? Yes. But I would say I would reserve that excuse for only those who have a clinical diagnosed phobia of distribution via video format. That might account for 0.1% of your audience, Josh. The rest, it's an excuse. Get over it, because you are being paid to be out there and be a performer.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. So, and at the end of the day, I mean, it's simple stuff, like none of this is there's no reason or excuse as to why anybody that's watching or listening to this couldn't go out there and deploy this.
100%, brother. So yeah, definitely any of you guys, I do have to get on that call now. Okay. So let me run, but mate, I love hanging out with you, man. It's like talking to a kindred spirit, man. So we got to do this again, man. I'll be honored any time to jump on with you.
Yeah, this has been amazing, my friend. Truly appreciate you and those watching and listening. As always, we truly appreciate you. Keep crushing it. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.
See you guys. Thank you, my man.